Welcome to another episode of They Might Be Self-Aware. I am Hunter Powers, to be joined shortly by Daniel Bishop. And today on the show we discuss, is it the real Daniel, or are we lost once again in the uncanny valley of reality? And speaking of that reality, OpenAI's Sora has arrived, and we are taking a look. Do they now reign supreme in video generation? One person reigning supreme is Robot Santa. He's on the loose as AI creates some festive mischief. And speaking of mischief, ChatGPT Pro is here, and we are unpacking it. Is it really worth $200 a month? And finally, Daniel almost swallows his latest AI gadget, giving him a case of speaker diarization. It's all up next, because you are listening to
They Might Be Self-Aware.
Is this the real Daniel, or is this Sora? Because I've lost all connection with reality at this point. I have no idea if what I'm looking at is real or it's entirely generated. How am I supposed to know?
Real.
Yeah, exactly. How am I supposed to know?
Daniel.
I know you have like your code word with your family so that you can validate that you're the real Daniel with them. Mm-hmm. But I feel like we need something too. I don't know if it's a cryptographic signature or just like, some hand movements. But
Should I try to like blink in Morse code to
I think
know
so.
that I'm really me? No, that's pretty easily fakeable.
It's out now. Sora, last week we were talking, or I don't know, maybe it was the week before. There were protests, there were leaks, there were hacks, and now it's real. The ship miss came, and what a wonderful
OpenAI's
phrase.
12 days of ship miss.
There's a lot of ship going on, yeah.
Right. And yeah, Robo Santa came early and delivered a big metal whirring present underneath our trees, and some people got to open it, and too many people tried to open it, and then the site wouldn't let more people try and open it.
Yeah, MKBHD. I don't know if are you familiar with MKBHD at all?
I think I'm not supposed to be familiar with other podcasters and personalities of that type, because we're obviously the only ones that everyone here should be listening to.
Play dumb and say you don't know who he is.
Yeah, sorry, who's Mr. KHD?
MKBHD is probably one of the most famous technology reviewers, and one of the earliest
Almost
YouTubers.
As famous as us, right?
Almost. He's getting there.
Okay.
And I believe he was the first person. His review went live a few hours before OpenAI officially announced that Sora was going to be part of Shipmas.
All right.
So I saw that, and by the way, he had a more or less positive take on it. And then I went to try to use it, and nothing. They had shut down signups very quickly. I checked back once more, and they were still shut down. And it's on my list of things to try. But you've actually tried it. Is that right?
I guess I just checked at a weird hour or after the hype died down, because in AI world, if something's a day and a half old, it's already old hat. But I was able to log in. I was able to make a couple of videos, and I mean, if you want, I could give you my review.
Yeah. What's first impressions?
First impressions. I think that it is astonishingly consistent in a scene. Now, granted, this is also over only the case of a 5-second generation. I'm on the free, not even free plan. I'm subscribed still to ChatGPT Plus or whatever, the like $20 a month tier, and that allows me to have so and so many credits that I can whir my way through.
And I guess we should clarify for our audience, in case they don't know, that Sora is a video generation program made by OpenAI, the same folks that make ChatGPT.
That's right. And about a year ago, they showed off some really astonishing videos that were like a minute long, when anything that anyone else has been able to put together is semi-coherent over the course of like 4 seconds or so. Runway.ml, something that I've used and am not incredibly impressed. I mean, like, I am impressed, but in terms of like, is this something that I want to stay subscribed to and keep using forever and ever? I don't necessarily think so. But and this is hard to really describe because I'm ultimately talking about a very visual medium here. Something about AI generated images from a couple of years ago, like even a portion of it might look okay, but then you look at the whole image and things are weird, and people would of course talk about like, oh, you ask for a picture of a person and it has too many fingers.
Yeah, there were always 18 fingers.
The same kind of thing, but over the course of video, would be like the camera pans and then there's like weird stuff that you wouldn't like, oh, it's an interior of a house, and then you turn and like, why is it now just looking at outside? Shouldn't this still, a lack of understanding of kind of the space that you're in, or if it pans this way and then back, things would not be in the scene anymore. So Sora is doing a really, really good job, easily better than anything that I've tried elsewhere, at like that consistency within a scene. One of the videos that I generated, like there's kind of a pan. So I'm not a filmmaker. I don't know what the correct term is. The camera kind of swivels around like in this large kind of 3D space. And I don't see stuff kind of like
that would wobbling
be a pan. Into and out of
it's either a pan or a tilt.
Existence.
A tilt
pan
is
or
up and
tilt.
down. A pan is left or right. Yeah.
Panning. Panning while also the camera would be like moving. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Point is, one of the
Pushing
generations that I saw moves a little
different.
to the right and a little to the left, and like a reflection from elsewhere in the scene is still there when it pans back. The books that are in a bookshelf are still there when you pan back. I haven't seen that elsewhere, and it looks, some of the features of the scene are unreal because I'm asking for weird, unreal stuff, but all of the real things in it, frankly, look like real video. It is very, very impressive in that way. There's also a storyboard feature where you can have like multiple clips that I guess are supposed to kind of link together. I haven't tried that yet, but I do imagine that there is an incredible amount of potential for this. I'm curious what kind of videos or even like full-on movies people are going to try to make with this.
Yes, I think there is a term, and I don't think this is the term, but I would probably describe that as continuity. There's really good continuity in the scenes that it's rendering out for you. So I did attend film school very briefly. Shout out to the Fighting Pickles. But on a film set, there's someone called the script supervisor. And their entire job is to make sure that if, hey, in one scene, the person picks up the can of Coke and sets it on the side of the couch, it's kind of weird, on the corner of the couch, and then the next scene to make sure that that can of Coke is still there and it's not like hopping all around the scenes and stuff like that. That's the job of the script supervisor. And so it sounds like there's that job no longer exists. There's now an AI script supervisor inside of Sora.
We'll see. There are still some like unreal elements. I'm looking at one of the videos.
I've heard the motion, like when you see humans, like it's not, it's weird. It's either sort of like slow motion how they're moving, or they're moving way too fast.
Yeah. This is just a guess, but supposedly, a lot of the video that was used to train these models to avoid getting into immediate tremendous amounts of legal trouble from like taking it from movies was stock footage. And a lot of that stock footage has that weird dreamlike kind of slow motion feel to it. And the AI kind of learned from that. And so you see that weird dreamlike slow motion. I haven't seen that as much in Sora, but I wouldn't say it's entirely done. I will say one of the like weirdnesses that definitely has persisted is I asked for someone to be like adding things to a boiling cauldron, and stuff just like appears in the person's hand and then gets dropped in. Like there isn't necessarily this real world knowledge of I'd have to pick up 3 things and then add them one at a time. It's you see a video of someone dropping things into a pot, and just like with each drop there then is something in the hand to keep dropping the next one in.
If I asked you to generate something now, could you generate it?
Assuming that the site is up and working, I can give it a go.
All right. You mentioned Santa earlier. How about a robot dressed as Santa stealing toys?
All right. Give me a sec.
How long does it take to render out the And by the way, what resolution, how high quality is it rendering?
480p.
Okay.
5 seconds long. And like a minute to generate each thing, which is around as long as it was taking for like Mid-Journey, or not Mid-Journey, Runway, excuse me. And there are other video creators out there like Kling, I think is a pretty popular one. I haven't actually tried that one yet. There's some open source solutions which have made gigantic strides in the last few months. But yeah, I feel like people were expecting that this was going to take forever to generate any footage whatsoever. No, like a minute or so. We can keep stalling for time and then I'll have it and show you in a sec, or we can just kind of come back to it a little bit later.
Okay, fair enough.
It says it's going.
Now, maybe the reason you're not getting it faster is I have you upgraded your ChatGPT account to a ChatGPT Pro account?
No, nor shall I. Do you want to tell people why I'm not going to do that?
Well, the ChatGPT Pro account has the very, very, very low price of $200 a month. This is in comparison to the normal ChatGPT account, which costs $20 account. And there's also a free ChatGPT account. You don't necessarily have to pay. And so for that $200 a month, and there's no annual pricing, by the way, you got to just pay the $200 a month. For the $200 a month, the biggest thing that you're getting access to is a variation on the O1 model, which also now, we didn't discuss it, but it's gone general availability. It's no longer O1 preview. It's now just O1. If you have the $20 paid account, you have access to that. But if you've got that $200 account, you have access to something called O1 Pro mode. And
now, what is O1 for a person who hasn't even used ChatGPT, let alone has used it and is perfectly happy with what they've got so far? Why the heck would you want O1 Pro or O1 in general? What does that do that the regular model doesn't? Why is it worth any dollars a month, let alone 200 of them?
Well, that's the Pro one. So the O11, the O1 model. And I'm maybe a tiny bit shaky on this, but conceptually, it reasons. That's its killer feature. It reasons about things, and it thinks about the steps that it should take in order to solve the problem that you're asking. And I guess I'll step back a little bit. In general, when you're prompting one of these large language models, it's best to give it instructions on how it should attack the problem that you're asking. First, think about all of the historical events that potentially happened. Second, identify the leaders during those time periods. Third, rank those leaders by the funniest from top to bottom. And then fourth, write a paragraph about each leader within this context. You might write something like that when you're asking ChatGPT, now 4.0, but just normal ChatGPT, a question, and you will get a better response if you structure your questions like that.
Do it kind of step by step. Right?
Yeah. So O1 conceptually
does
it automatically. You don't tell it all the different steps. It figures out what are the best steps, and as it's figuring them out, it may figure out sort of sub steps of those steps in breaking down the work. And this allows it to be better at applying logic to these questions that we're sending into to these large language models. And O1 Pro has the permission to think much, much longer than the normal O1. Normal O1, I would suggest, on average, thinks about 15 seconds in order to solve a question. I've seen it come back more or less instantly. I've probably seen it take up to about a minute, but in general, I'd say it's around 15 seconds. O1 Pro can take many minutes. It can take 10 minutes to think about something and come back.
It says, go get a coffee. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah. And on specific benchmarks, it is a little bit better than the normal O1. And so,
that was a shining statement right there. For some things, it's a little better.
It's like,
you know what? Hey, fair, because a lot of models that aren't this have gotten really good.
They're like, yeah, like for PhD level mathematics, it is about 3% better than the normal O1 sometimes. Like, this is the level.
I'm sure the O1 regular one is better than a bunch of
which
the
you
other
have
models
access to
that
for $20 a month.
So
yeah.
What you're describing, this it'll think on it, is in the industry referred to as chain of thought, where you have an output at the end, but you have the model. Frankly, it's doing exactly what it already does, which is to say it outputs text in the background and you don't see that text. Here's the question. Okay, I'm going to approach, and like it'll think I'll approach this in this way and this, and then it'll take that little plan, just like you described it. Instead of doing this over the course of 4 or 5 different messages back and forth with a person, it does it itself. It's that it will think without you seeing it. It still is generating the text of here's what I should try next. And then it'll generate that text and then it'll review that and say, are there any changes that I'd make? Yes, I would change this. Okay, on to the next step. And I've seen that kind of thing not hidden, but absolutely available for you to look at and inspect and so on in open source models, which makes one wonder, what is O1 really doing differently? Frankly, I think the only different thing they're doing is not letting you see its work. Now, granted, you can't argue with the results. It is a very good model. But I don't know, 10 minutes for the average person for most use cases. If I wanted to draft an email, if I wanted to tell me about the Battle of Hastings, if I wanted to whatever, it doesn't need to.
No, and OpenAI is very clear about that, and they like don't use this to write an email. Right. Use this for your hardest, most challenging problems. But this is what they tout as the killer feature of ChatGPT Pro for the $200 a month. Okay. But it does come with some other things. This is for like research scientists. Yeah, or rich people. Like, oh, I'm thinking about this biology problem or something. Is this supposed to actually help make discoveries? So yes, it could potentially help make discoveries. And there's a lot of, I've read a lot of anecdotal reports of, one of the things it does do a little bit better is it's a little bit better at coding on these very specific coding tests. And again, we are talking about a couple of percentage points better. Okay. And I have read some anecdotal reports of people submitting their entire code base to it and asking for a very large refactor and getting back something that was quite good. Now, I've also seen the opposite in the anecdotal evidence, and I've seen a lot of tests where they compared the model that you and I use the most, Claude 3.5 Sonnet, with the O1 Pro, and Claude 3.5 Sonnet outperforms it. I'm so happy with Claude 3.5 Sonnet with my coding stuff. I can just, hey, here is a problem. Here's the skeleton of a thing. Please now fill out these 4 files that I need. Okay, done. And if I have to make a couple of edits or something, it's like a collaborative back and forth process. But frankly, so much of the 80% of I just need this code to exist so I can get to the actual problem that I'm trying to solve, my God, it's so easy to use and to get what I want out of it. If I was to spend $200 a month and say, give me what I want, and then have to go take a 10-minute coffee break, like the point that I'm trying to get at here is, I wonder if we are hitting kind of we must be fairly close to a maximum on like the curve of what many people in many situations will find useful. And I've talked about this kind of concept before of like, AGI is not a binary, there isn't it, and now there is. There's X% of the time for X% of the people in X% of situations. I'm not saying that this can be an entire coder, and I'm not saying that it could replace like certainly a data architect who can like figure out here's these 10 services and how they need to talk to each other and all of the code to get all of those things working together. Maybe a year from now we will. Maybe O1 Pro could do it. But for a lot of use cases that I personally am using, I've already found something that is so astonishingly useful that at the price level that I'm paying, to say I'll now spend 10 times as much for a 3% increase, I feel like I'm the right person to be offering this kind of product to, and I don't want it. If you felt confident that it would save you 3% of your time, do you get 3% of your time back? And you can figure out. I guess you have to look at your salary, and I'll have to ask OpenAI, okay, hey, can you do the math on, is this literally worth it for me? Yeah. And I mean, I think that's what it comes down to that's what it will come down to for most users, if it actually is saving them time. And I don't think the current suggestion is that it's really saving people all that much time. Anyways, one thing you get access to is O1 Pro. You also get unlimited access to O1 as part of this Pro plan, whereas in your normal account, your $20 account, your peasant account, you're technically limited.
Right. I can only use it so many times, and then they'll kind of kick me out of it for the day.
And you get unlimited advanced voice mode. So if you want to keep the conversation with ChatGPT open all day long, technically you can. However, I've been reading reports of people who have been trying to do this, and they are getting banned for excessive usage. So
it's not really unlimited.
It's one of those unlimited. It has, everyone has their own definition of unlimited unlimiteds.
Right. There are limits to unlimited.
And now just to circle it all back around, and this came out sort of like after the fact, it also gets you a different access to Sora, a different level of access to Sora.
Right. We have our video ready, by the way.
Ooh. But let me finish this thought, and then we'll take a look at the video. So
yes,
with the Pro account, you get far more credits than the normal account. I think you get 10,000 credits versus 3,000 credits. So you can generate more video. You get access to generating a higher resolution video, all the way up to 1080p. You can generate longer videos. And you have more ability to generate videos of specific people, which is highly, highly, highly limited in the regular plan.
So if I'm willing to spend $200 a month, then I can just deep fake.
Oh, you can go to town.
Okay. That is interesting.
All right. So it finally rendered. It's fully baked. It is definitely a robot dressed as Santa.
Yep. So I did two of them.
All right. I feel pleasantly surprised with this. Like, it's pretty good.
See what I mean about, like, there's a consistency to the scene. It's not just, the reflection on the floor looks good. Like, okay, sure, any image generator has been fairly good at that for like a year, but it's as it moves the camera through space, like shapes aren't getting
the
weirdly
locomotion
squashed and distorted. Santa is a little janky, but maybe that's just because he's a robot.
Yeah, but
so it generates two images at a time, or two videos at a time.
I'm watching some cable TV movie.
Santa is not consistent between scenes.
I'm watching some cable TV movie, and I see, like, I'm not stopping for a second to think, like, what is this? This feels professional.
It does. There is a slowness. So Santa's holding a sack and then drops it, and it definitely drops like in slow motion, as if underwater. So there is some of that weird slow-mo still going on.
Yeah, and I guess for our audio listeners, imagine you're watching a Hallmark movie and a robot dressed as Santa comes in to steal all the toys from underneath the Christmas tree. And that's basically what it looks like. And it looks photorealistic, and it looks like it was, again, part of a film. This is a professionally lit scene. This is not an iPhone capturing something happening in the moment. I guess that's also an interesting note, is that it is a professional scene. Like, it's a professionally lit scene that kind of looks like it's on a set
shot. Yeah.
No, it doesn't look like, this actually happened and someone captured it on their iPhone.
Right. Also interesting is that I put in just, what was it? A robot Santa stealing.
Robot dressed as Santa stealing toys.
Yeah. And it put together a storyboard of two kind of clips here. One, a robot wearing a Santa costume, complete with a red suit, white beard, and hat, sneaks into a dimly lit living room. The room is decorated for Christmas with twinkling lights, a tall pine tree adorned with ornaments, and stockings hanging from the fireplace. The robot's eyes glow mischievous blue as it quietly steps toward a pile of toys underneath the tree, reaching out with its metallic hand. And then the second one, the robot carefully picks up a toy train and places it into a large red sack slung over its shoulder. All of that from just the one prompt that I did. So we can see that the large language model aspect of this takes the prompt and says, okay, Daniel, you didn't really give me much to work with here. It needs to know things about how is the scene lit, how are the people dressed, how's this, how's that, and thus we see.
And also, to your point earlier, I mean, so there's two different shots there, but they look like they're from the same. It's the same robot Santa. Whereas, like, you go to Midjourney, most. Maybe I'm looking at it on a very tiny screen, so maybe you're seeing more details than I am at this moment.
I actually generated two of this, so let me go ahead and do the same thing again. Here is...
There's more?
There's more Santa.
And do you know like how many credits this took, or how much of your monthly allotment was this? Are you cut off now, or this is like
somewhere around like 1/50th?
Okay, you could do this like 50 times.
Something like that.
These look great too.
They do look great. The eyes on the Santa are different. And
I want to watch
one of them
this
has,
movie.
Like, metal stuff sticking out of his shoulder, as opposed to the other one where his arms are clearly just in the sleeves. You can see in the second video here, there's like a little bit of that, let's call it temporal instability. Sound like a scientist in some time travel movie now, where Santa's right shoulder has like half of it going into the sleeve by the end of the shot, but at the beginning it looks like there's no sleeve on the metallic shoulder. But still, what an amazing nitpick to be able to do, because he's walking across a floor. Like, it looks as if it is a real shot of an actual house.
Now, I did notice one thing that I guess, with all this absolutely incredible technological advancement in filmmaking, we seem to have also gone back to the silent movie era. Right at the same time.
There are sites where you can generate audio for these kinds of things too. Yeah. If I hook it up to Sora, not Sora, this is Sora, to Suno to give it Hallmark Christmas music in the background. And if I'm sure there's something for like Foley, sound effects. But
if I'm feeling very, I don't know, aggressive, maybe I'll edit a little music underneath that. Some Christmas tunes that don't get us blocked.
Oh, goodness. But also, like, the couple of things that I was nitpicking about there have nothing to do with, like, how good the floor looks and the, reflections off of it. I guess I could say that Santa looks like he's kind of doing that slip slide across the floor where, like, a footfall is not necessarily staying consistent with where he is. But there's no, like, weird visual artifact so much as it just looks like he's kind of moonwalking.
That was cool.
Oh, it's really incredible.
Does it tell you how long it took?
Other things do that consistency.
I know you originally estimated it takes like about a minute, but does it tell you how long this actually took to render? It felt like it was closer to like 5 minutes, but
it was finished well.
Oh, it was ready. Okay.
It did not just.
So it was about a minute for that. And then
I would say it was about a minute. Yeah.
On your regular account, can you render out the higher quality ones, or are you limited? You got to fork over that $200 to do that.
Let's see. I can make loops. I can trim and extend this video in a new board. I don't see anything in here for changing like its resolution. It definitely says this is 480p.
And then another really cool feature they have, I think maybe
I
they
could
call
do 720p 4 times slower.
Yeah. Is they call it remixing?
At 480p, I'm allowed to do 10 seconds. At 720, only 5 seconds. I'm going to do a 10-second video. Let's see what happens. Give me something else to put in.
Oh.
2 podcast hosts discussing Robot Santa.
This is getting really meta.
No. I don't think Meta has a video generator out yet.
Touche.
All right. It is submitted. Start your counters at home, ladies and gents.
While that's going, I was curious. We talked about in the last episode your Plod pen. You finally got it. Are you actually wearing it around?
I'm not wearing it right now, but that's because while recording, where I would wear it is just outside of our video frame. Yeah. Here it is.
The Plod.
Not going to be in focus because I use a static focus.
It's called the note pen, by the way, not the Claude pen, the Claude note pen.
This is almost small enough to swallow. Yeah, there's a French
Have you tried?
term. There's a French term for like staring into the abyss or something like that, where it's like you're driving and I just went off a cliff. I'm holding this up, and for a tenth of a second, I was like, I bet I could swallow that. I didn't, but I could have.
Okay, but
maybe.
Are you actually? I didn't ask if you swallowed it. You've been eating it.
Right.
Are you actually using it, or does it just like sit on yourself like so many of my gadgets back there?
I was just at an on-site, and I wore this to a bunch of meetings, and I used this as intended. Record during the meeting, upload it onto my phone, get the transcript, get the meeting notes. I try it for short meetings and for long meetings.
And you were generally pleased with the results?
I think that is a very good way of describing it. I'm generally pleased with the results. I'm not blown away. I still think that, like, outside of the fact that this thing that I'm holding up is just a voice recorder with Bluetooth and I think also Wi-Fi in it to like talk to my phone, because there's a fast mode to, move data from one thing to the other. The actual thing is just a voice recorder. The neat part of that is that there are plenty of like, I'm on a Microsoft Teams call or Zoom or whatever, and there is a meeting, and then there's like an app that you can add into that will give you meeting notes and action items and so on, which is tremendously useful. Everyone should be using those if you're in a bunch of meetings. This is that, but for real life, where I can just sit there and it does what's called speaker diarization. So it'll say, oh, this was speaker 1 and this was speaker 2. And then whenever you have the recording, you can say, I'm speaker 1, this person was speaker 2, here's Hunter's speaker 3, whatever. And for like a large town hall type meeting that I was in, it identified 17 specific features or speakers. For a one-on-one, it correctly identified that there were 2. Now, when I say it identified, I don't mean Claude and I don't mean this voice recorder. I mean almost certainly their friends at OpenAI, because they say on the thing, you might be able to change which model it's using, but I believe by default it's GPT 4.0 that it does. And there's of all of the large cloud providers, I'm pretty sure all of them have some kind of like audio speaker diarization type product. But I'm pretty sure this is just using OpenAI. Not that there's anything wrong with that. We do have a video ready, by the way.
Ooh, all right.
And this one's a 10-second video.
I've got my popcorn ready.
All right, let's go ahead and share it. And again, we're going to try and make these. So those of you watching on YouTube, you can just see it because that's how seeing things works. For those of you who are listening in the show notes or something, we're going to try and make, if this is like exportable, we're going to try to make this something that you're able to take a look at.
All right. And what was the prompt for this again? This was talking about Robot Santa?
Discussing Robot Santa. And this one didn't use the storyboard feature. So this is just that prompt. It didn't add in a whole bunch of extra stuff.
So this is...
as a description for those of you who are listening and not going to watch, we see 2 white guys with beards and glasses and some pretty nice looking mics sitting at a round table. There is a computer open with like a spectrogram or waveform that you can see, so you know it's a podcast and that it's doing recording. And in the background, there's those like vertical and horizontal blocks of foam or whatever. Soundproofing stuff, yeah. The camera's very slowly panning from right to left.
What's on the table?
There's a cup on the table. There's like a little dinosaur action figure toy.
So they're into collectibles.
Cup precariously balanced between 2 tables.
That's a little odd.
In fact, it looks like the cup is on both of the tables, despite them being at a very slightly different height. So like half of the cup is like a centimeter taller than the other half of the cup. There's a phone that might not necessarily 100% be existing in space on one table. It might be clipping through the other. But that's me having had time to look at this and like start nitpicking at it. I actually just saw another weird little visual artifact. The soundproofing second block from the left at the very top wobbles at the beginning of the video. And the fact that I can point that out and be like, here's the weird visual artifact is miles better than something that like Runway or Kling or whoever would be able to do. And also that this is a 10-second long video with Runway. And again, I just keep using them as the example because I've used them a bunch. Runway has the ability to do, I think it's like 5 or 6 second long videos. And there definitely is the thing I'm looking at as it moves around in space is not what started the video. And if you extend that video from the end of one into the beginning of another, you definitely are no longer looking at the same thing that you were looking at the beginning of that. I have no doubt, just looking at this one, it's the same 2 people at the end of the video that it was at the beginning. There's no weird slow morphing into something else. If I was to extend this, I'm pretty sure it would continue to look like those 2 guys. So with the 1 or 2 clips that I'd done before us talking today, I was impressed. Now I'm very, very, very impressed.
So to summarize, if this podcast was only 10 seconds long, we would be out of a job now.
That's right. Yeah, we've reached that point. If it was only 10 seconds long and 480p, which we know that we are in much, much higher resolution.
And silent.
No, we're pretty loud.
Okay. I guess, yeah, we wait until it all becomes self-aware, and it's an hour long. It's got to only be a matter of time. We're at a minute today. By the end of next year, yeah, it could conceivably be an hour that it could generate. It's plausible.
Plausible?
Plausible.
Mm-hmm.
All right, folks, you've been listening to They Might Be Self-Aware. Whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your preferred podcast player, just make sure you like and subscribe. It's easy, it's free, it's fun. There's so
we don't make you pay $200 a month.
No, there's no $200
Not even
a month.
for the pro version of our podcast.
What? I don't wait for next year. There may be there might be self-aware pro mode. Who knows? The 10-second long version. You want that 10-second long version? Maybe that'll be our thing. You can listen to this
10-second
like
long
30-some
silent videos for $200 a month.
I love it. Yes, finally.
This is how we monetize.
All right. Well, we thank everyone, and until next time, you've been listening to.
They might be self-aware.